One, two. Testing one, two. Alright, party people in the place to be. The party is already started. And it's about the
Yo.
KRS.
Yes, sir.
It's an honor to speak to you, brother. How you doing?
I am good.
Man, we looking forward to having you in Tallahassee. Me and Steph hit up Gainesville a couple of months ago to see you down there, and you ripped it. So.
Oh, Gainesville was crazy. Yeah, I know you was there.
Yeah, so we came back up with a lot of stories about, man, y'all should have been to the show, and then the next thing, boom, here come the KRS show in Tallahassee falling into our lap. So everybody's really amped to see you, man. I definitely know that.
Nice.
So what can fans new and old expect from a KRS-One show, especially this one in Tally?
Savagery. Savagery, and in a good way. I like to take it to the really levels of inspiration. Obviously, if you ever seen a KRS show, as with, I mean, a good jump off point was Gainesville. I really enjoyed the Gainesville show, but in a way, the question's kind of incomplete because it's not even a KRS show. It's sort of like a family getting together and celebrating itself.
Word.
And if we can achieve that level, which we will, I'm quite sure, that's I guess, the epiphany point. Obviously, you get the classics. I'm doing stuff off a new album that I'm putting out as well. The album is called Now Hear This.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm taking a big risk with this album because I'm sticking to club music. I'm sticking to authentic boom bap beats, rhymes, punchlines, stories. I'm sticking to that, and there's only a small audience that appreciates that style of hip hop, and so I'm excited about it because it's my style to always try to point or to always try to put a spotlight on that which is the minimum.
Right.
That the underdog, the one that's not being heard. So there's an audience that I know exists that likes to hear rhymes.
Definitely.
And we are underrepresented in many ways, but we're the silent majority in that sense.
Yeah. I think, a lot of that silent majority, like you say, a lot of people will say, well, we'll be on social media complaining because, hip-hop ain't like how it used to be and stuff like that. But, when Sean Price recently passed away, the outpouring from the true fans of the boom bap style of hip-hop, really surprised me how many people were really out there and how many people were touched by Sean Price's music and that style of music that we all have come to know and love. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. And rest in peace to Sean Price, no question.
Absolutely.
That news knocked me on my feet, man. I was like, wow.
Now, you mentioned the Now Hear This album and the style that you were going for, but in terms of like the subject matter and production and who did you collaborate with? Is it a KRS-One true solo album, or do you have guests on it, or how does that work out?
Well, so far, it's just me. So far. I'm even thinking about whether to use background vocalists or not. I gotta laugh, but it's just me. And here's why, too. Is that when I'm on stage, the album, this album, Now Hear This, reflects what it's like, when I'm on stage. A lot of the music that's on this album, I had a chance to test it in front of an audience. This is not music that I was, sometimes you do a song and you don't know the reaction of the audience. You just did it, you like it, you think this is something inspiring and you put it out. This album is more of a tested album, but tested in live MC situations, live club, live festivals, live theater performances, things like that. And so you come up with subject matters like, for instance, I got this song called Drugs One, which is like the winning of a championship. Drugs won the championship. And it's sort of an answer to actually the actual war on drugs. When you say there's a war on drugs, well, the outcome is that drugs won that war. And I talk about the fact that it's a shame, actually, it's a hypocrisy that the United States is split on its marijuana laws, just on that alone, where in California you can freely grow, smoke, have marijuana on you, and then again in Colorado and Seattle you can have up to tons on you, and it's now legal, but yet you cross an imaginary line and enter into a state on the East Coast, and you could still get 5 years for a joint.
Right.
That's crazy. With this particular time in American history is really crazy. Somebody's probably going to write about it maybe 10 years from now, but we're living it like right this second, where the country split on this, split on many issues, but this is a blatant one, and I talk about it in this song called Drugs One. Concepts like that. I talk about the American flag. Actually, more the Confederate flag. The Confederate flag was just lowered in South Carolina, and placed in the museum. Well, when President Obama was at the South Carolina church after the shooting there, and he had alluded to the fact that the Confederate flag represented slavery and represented the Confederacy that wanted to uphold the institution of slavery. He was slightly incorrect with that, and it inspired me to write the song American Flag, because it wasn't the Confederate flag that upheld slavery. The Confederate flag upheld the Confederacy. The American flag, the red, white, and blue flag, the Betsy Ross flag, that flag is the one that flew over the institution of slavery. The American, to lower the Confederate flag with no mention of the American flag's involvement in slavery is a bit unfair or even hypocritical. Wrote a song about that. And got with the Beat Miners.
Word.
Did this song called Biters. Basically talk about unoriginal writing and urging people to be authentic. Be as authentic as you possibly can. That's where true creativity is coming from. Daring to be yourself. Daring to be you. Do you have the courage to be you? Question I ask often. But Beat Miners came with some heat, and there's other songs. So there's but all of these songs, or most of, not all, maybe 8 out of well, right now it's 12. I'm going to probably get up to 15 songs. I'm debating on these last 3, which, whether they should be on the album or not. Right. But there's a strong 12 that I'm definitely coming with. I think people will really enjoy this as a breath of fresh air. And let me ask you a question, because it's fresh. This question is fresh right now. I can just take a census at this particular moment. This is pertaining to the album. These days, right now, the album is scheduled to come out in November. And for sale, meaning you can buy it on my tours and you can get it at TuneCore. But is it wise to release a free album? Is it wise to give this album away for free. Not, we understand the financial loss, but put that aside for a moment. With issues like the ones that I'm coming with, and if you were sitting at the table and was holding the KRS-One album in your hand, and you had a choice between whether to put it out for sale or to just put it out for free download, what would you do?
I mean, that's a tough question because I'm not KRS-One, but what I have what I've seen other artists do, and I like physical copies. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yes.
I always like to have a physical. But what I've seen other artists do in the past is release something online for the free, and then follow up with a sale of physicals, and people who really appreciate the album will then go out and buy it, and that way you get more of a spread of the MP3, but the people who really want to support will come behind and cop the physical.
Yes, indeed. That's interesting. That of course is what we're poised to do right now.
Word.
What you just mentioned, but we are discussing. We happen to be speaking during a time where this is the question that's on our minds. Most likely, we're going to go with what you just said. In essence, we are going to release a piece of it. There's about 3 or 4 songs we're going to release, and then there's a video and stuff like that. It's interesting. You just happen to call in the middle of this kind of question, and you've now been added to it. Thank you for your intellectual contribution. That was dope.
No doubt. One of the, you touched on the topical matter that's going to be on Now Hear This, and one of the things that's, I think, very topical right now, and it's something that you're not just new to. You've spoken on it a lot throughout your career as an MC. Is police violence. And you've done Sound of the Police and Black Cop and Who Protects Us From You. But it really only seems like these past 2-3 years that technology is kind of caught up with a lot of this police abuse and police violence, but it still seems that the judicial system has it. What's your opinion on on this situation?
Well, that's first of all, that's a book right there. The answer is a book, because this is not a new issue. This is not a new issue. And let me also say this, that within this issue of police misconduct, this breaks down to several other things. Murdering unarmed black people, basically, is the tip of the iceberg. That's what we can see above the water. We haven't gotten to the robberies yet. Not murder, but how police rob the public as well, take things from the public, invade the public's privacy, disgrace the public, like in front of their families or in front of their employers or so on. No regard for a person's dignity, that kind of thing. That kind of character is corrupt in and of itself. The murder is the tip of the iceberg. It's what gets everybody to take a look. But the real issue, in my opinion, is the systematic corruption. The system itself needs to be uprooted and thrown away. You talk about technology capturing a part of reality that the judicial system hasn't seemed to catch up to in its prosecution. Well, it's probably because we've outgrown the judicial system itself. There's a lot of discussion on the fallacies of even the 12-person jury selection, or jury, like trial by jury, 12 people. There's been study after study on how biased that is, and why the jails are filled up with African Americans, and so on. But I making me go off into something else. But we've outgrown the judicial system. Is my point? Is that can we envision a society without police? Can we envision a society without penalties for right and wrong? More like this, go back a little bit on what was the original point to the penitentiary or prison was rehabilitation. It wasn't about locking a person. It wasn't about punishment. It was about rehabilitation. You was locked away to rehabilitate. You was given some sort of care. You must have been out of your mind in that sense. Well, we don't focus, obviously, on rehabilitation in the United States and its prison system. And the American people, or the American society, may have outgrown this kind of order, this kind of social order. Maybe we need doctors to patrol the streets, psychiatrists. Maybe, that's even more scarier. To even have, doctors walking around with sedatives and this, like you act out, and it becomes something else. Or just the fact that in a society, this points less to the institution and more to the people, that the American people have outgrown the judicial system. It doesn't need it anymore in that sense. Now it does. I'm hypothesizing and philosophizing at this point. But when you think about what would cure this issue of police misconduct, one of the great cures is to evolve to a level of society where you don't need police anymore. And that means that the order in the society has to be such that justice is the society itself. Justice, in other words, everybody is where they are supposed to be. Everybody, this is not law, this is order. They say law and order. But we only focus in on law. The order is, from a social point of view, everybody is where they are supposed to be. Everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. If you have a purpose in your heart, I feel like this, I feel like that. I think I can be an electrician. I think I could be a doctor, a chef. I think I could own a slew of cabs and a transportation company. I think I want to go fishing. You should be able to enter a city or an environment or a series of institutions that makes your dreams come true. There's no reason to pay taxes into a society. There's no reason to be loyal to a society, to fight the wars of a society, to be civil in that society, unless you're getting something out of that society. Right. Anything else is oppression. Anything else, you just got me locked into society. Then what we're really living in is an outdoor prison. We're already in prison. The cities are then prison. They're just outdoor prisons. And if you act crazy in this outdoor prison, solitary confinement is actually prison itself, one of these penitentiaries. But just to go back and not make the question that not go on this answer, but I think the American people have outgrown these archaic ways of ordering society, and it's like tectonic plates, like land coming against each other, or icebergs coming against each other, and it's like forming grotesque aberrations of each other. Like they're just smashing into each other and forming something different. The American society right now is a crazy, crazy place. It's going through a major change, a major upheaval. And in a way, this is good. This is good. But good voices have to speak up. And I think there's a lot of people that are afraid to speak up these days, and not afraid in a cowardice way, but like tired. Like some of the best minds are tired. Some of the best minds are saying, man, I just can't deal with this. Like there's nobody, like with all this police misconduct, why has nobody come on the television and said, the next cop that kills an unarmed black person, anybody, forget black person, the next cop that kills any American citizen unarmed, you're getting 30 years minimum in prison. You're going to prison for 30 years minimum. Why has that been said? Why is the argument still, well, there's high crime in these areas and police don't know whether they're going to come home at night? That's the argument. The argument is that the police are afraid, basically. They're shooting because they're afraid. And if you're a police officer, how could you be afraid? You know, what did you become a cop for in that sense? But that's what the argument is. So where's the leadership in that sense? Where's the head cop that says we are not afraid and we're going to stomp out this situation, or we're going to do what we can to mend the situation? No one's saying anything. It's sort of like everybody's waiting to see what's going to happen to jump in on either side, and that's a dangerous situation to be in when whole nations start taking sides on issues that shouldn't even really exist to begin with. History shows us that that's the beginning of civil war. And soon, you know, the United States could be torn apart based on all of these ideological differences. I don't like you because you're that. You don't like me because I'm this. I don't like you because you live there. I don't like you because you live there. You know, I don't like you because you look like that. You talk like this. You did. And after a while, we have the Civil War again. And where's the leadership of somebody saying, you know, let's back up a little bit. Let's pull back a little bit. Here's what we all do agree upon. Okay, we don't agree with murder in the United States coming from any American citizens here. We are supposed to be above murder in that sense. The president needs to say that. You know, what are the 10 commandments of the United States? What does it really mean to be an American? What does that look like? We need a reassessment on that right now. Maybe one of these presidential candidates will address that issue on citizenship. You know, there's so much talk about immigration, you know, with a focus on Mexican immigration, but there's this talk about, you know, immigration, people immigrating to the United States, and you know, you have Trump saying what he's saying, and everybody saying, you know, their piece, but no one's talking about American citizenship itself, how low it has fallen, how disgraceful it is becoming. Like, you know, you're fighting for, you know, immigration, but you're not even talking about, okay, so if a person jumps through all these hoops to come in the country, the best thing they could aspire to be is a capitalist murderer. Like that's the best that they could aspire to be. Well, where is the greatness in a country if it's not within its people? And so, you know, again, I'm just pointing to the leadership part of it and saying, you know, police misconduct is just the tip of the iceberg of a very deep problem about American citizenship and who is an American and what are the powers of that citizen and what are the responsibilities and duties of that citizen. We need a reassessment of that straight up, and maybe in a generation we could get rid of these killer cops.
Let's talk hip hop for a minute now. The Straight Outta Compton movie just came out, and you know, it seemed to be pretty well received. And one of the things that I saw on social media was a lot of hip hop fans talking about, man, they should make a movie about Public Enemy. They should make a movie about the Beasties. And the other name that came up a lot was they should make a movie about BDP. Is that something you'd be interested in working on, or having a BDP movie ever appear?
Absolutely, with an exclamation point. Absolutely, in bold letters, exclamation point. This is, first of all, Straight Outta Compton was dope, in my opinion. I thought the movie was brilliant. I thought it was dope. It wasn't as good as others like 8 Mile. I thought, 8 Mile is still at the top of my list. You know, movies like Boys in the Hood still at the top of the list. but I definitely put Straight Outta Compton right in there amongst those movies. I like the way they did it. Now, of course, as a hip-hop historian myself, there was a lot that they left out. A lot was left out. And I even understand that there's some controversies. I've heard one or two arguments float by about what was left out and, some of Dre's responses to it and, this kind of deal. But expected with such a phenomenally received movie like that. Yes, there's a BDP movie. We've been talking about this for years. Years and years. The reason that we've been holding back is because I'm not selling my rights to the film. Most of these movies, and I don't know what Straight Outta Compton or any of these other movies a particular deal was, but most of these movies, it's a tradition, legal tradition in Hollywood, that if somebody's going to give you $20 million to do a movie, they're buying the rights to the story, basically. And you got to be clear with that. And so over the years, I never wanted to sell my rights. Several offers have come on the table. Reputable people, great people, even HBO in the 90s wanted to do something as well, but they wanted the rights, to my story itself. And I'm not selling my rights. My story belongs to my children. If they're dumb enough to sell it themselves, then that's what it'll be. But no, as far as I'm concerned, that's something you pass down, legacy to legacy. But now the turf is different now. There's crowdfunding. There are HD cameras, 4D cameras now. There are people just leaving film school in this new environment where whole movies can be shot within a studio. Green screen and this technology is amazing now. Animation is amazing now, and not $1 million to get an animated something going. No, everything now has been equalized and brought down to the level of the common man. And even though on one level I rail against these things philosophically, in this area in terms of film, it's a major benefit to the criminal-minded project. The project is in three ways. First, there is a trailer that we have already put together, a small trailer that goes out that'll probably going to go with a crowdfunding start. And actually, because crowdfunding, besides the money that can be raised, the marketing for your movie actually begins right there. You already bring a crowd together, which is what I'm most interested in, is getting ideas from the audience that's willing to invest into the film itself. Of course, we have a story. We have, the story of KRS, Scott LaRock, and so on and so on. But the way that story is told, what the audience would prefer to see more than something else, this kind of thing. We have a little time, and only a little bit of time, to do this. I mentioned a little bit of time because Criminal Minded came out in 1987, and 2017 will be the 30th anniversary of Criminal Minded, the album. And so we were looking to have the first documentary basically focused around the album, shot and ready for 2017. So throughout 2016, we're gonna be shooting the interviews for the documentary, which will basically remind everyone about the story, reveal some things you didn't know, but focus mainly on the album Criminal Minded and its impact on rap music and hip-hop culture. But then the second piece after that, which we are in negotiation with right now, is the feature-length film, which would come after 2017, feature-length film. I was looking for something a little more elaborate than just the telling of the story itself. I was holding out for somebody to really want to invest some money first to make something really memorable. Memorable in the sense like something like a cross between 300 and Boys in the Hood. Like the opening scene of 300, where the young boy is sent out in the woods to fend for himself, and some wolf-like monster is there ready to, eat him, basically. And he defeats the wolf, in the cold, rises from, the dead wolf's body, he goes back to his village wearing the hide of the wolf on his back, and now he's proclaimed a man.
Trying to say that wolf is MC Shan?
Well, this is why crowdfunding works. Because little suggestions like that are definitely well taken, I should say. But yeah, it would be the battle scars of what it takes to really become an MC. The story of KRS-One and Scott LaRock, which we would probably call criminal-minded, or even by all means necessary. Either one works, but criminal-minded is the story of KRS-One and Scott LaRock, and we definitely want to do that. We're talking to writers right now about it, only because the DVD, we're in production with the DVD right now as we speak, getting that done. But the writers for the actual screenplay and Impossible script that we're looking at right now for the motion picture. In the past, a gentleman by the name of Torre, he was an MSNBC host, and Torre, well, years before all of that, even I think it was maybe in the beginning of 2000. Well, maybe even before that. But we had wrote a book together about my life, actually, the early days, called Man of Steel or something like that. He had some working title, but we delivered the book too late, and the book was rejected. And but it was some great writing, some of Torre's best writing, explaining the story and everything. And from there, we were going to do a film based on the book. But now I'm more thinking, now that, Tribe Called Quest released a really good DVD as well. I mean, it's all, not all, but it's out now. It's been out for a few years. Mm-hmm. But that too is inspiring as well. How they told the story as well. You did get captured in it. You did become a member of Tribe Called Quest as you watched the story. Those kinds of things. My story's different, but it's that kind of drama, that kind of suspense, that pulling you in to make you feel a certain part of time, to make you feel this history that's hardly ever spoken about. I mean, just briefly, I'll put a period on it right here, that, the story of KRS Scott LaRock is a story of a social worker and a homeless guy, and how eventually this social worker gives up his life so that the homeless guy could go on and give this message of hope to other people in his same situation. And that's the basic story of it there. And there's, of course, all types of craziness that happens in between all of that in there, with ultimately Scott LaRock losing his life, breaking up a fight. But I don't think people really understand the depth of a social worker in the 1980s in the Bronx, in a homeless shelter. This is the rawest job next to being in a prison, actually, or an insane asylum, or a mental institution. This would be one of the rawest jobs you would do. And there's Scott LaRock, or then Scott Sterling was his name. He's a social worker, over some 200 guys, all with different problems and mental issues and family issues, and he's trying to solve everybody's problem. And out of all of those guys, there's me, and I, we happen to hit it off. Out of 200 guys, we happened to hit it off, and it was like he revealed it. He's not really a social. This is not his plan to be in life, a social worker. He took an opportunity and ran with it to have a job. And he said, "I'm really a DJ. I DJ on the weekend." Scott LaRock, DJ Scott LaRock, and he invited me down to the club. And from there, we're going to tell the story of how this social worker helped this homeless dude, which in turn helped him because it was because Scott got this by Mr. Magic that I stepped up and wrote the South Bronx. And then the rest is literally history.
That's perfect timing for my next question. Now,
Yeah.
I listened to an interview Marley did a couple of years ago with Combat Jack, and he was talking about how BDP might have, let me put this nicely, might have borrowed some of his drum samples. You two guys happen to be in neighboring studios, and all of a sudden Bridges Over came out, and it was kind of like using Marley's drums against them. So you weren't just coming for their throats, but you also coming with their own drums against them. Is that something that KRS-One would like to confirm or deny?
The reason I laugh is because Marley is an idiot. He is crazy. But you know what? We did an interview with Marley, and he said the same thing. Now, mind you, I have never heard of this. Let me first answer your question and then go back, because we interviewed Marley about this very issue, and we interviewed Said G on this issue as well.
Right.
These types of controversies are well documented in the DVD that we just discussed.
Word.
But let me answer your question directly. Now, yes, for the Bridge Is Over, the drums of the Bridge Is Over was the same drums as Eric B. for President. Mm-hmm. But now clap your hands the way he's doing.
Yeah.
I came through the door. I said it before. Those drums was the drums for the Bridge Is Over, not South Bronx, for the Bridge Is Over.
Right.
And I don't know where Said G got those drums from. The producer. Now, me and Said G share credit on the Bridge Is Over production. I did the beat to the Bridge Is Over and played the piano, and then went and did the lyrics in terms of the production. So I kind of take lead production on the Bridge Is Over. But the sounds was Said G sounds. The drum machine we were actually beating on was Said G's drum machine. Said G walked into the studio with the drum machine and with those sounds. Mm-hmm. So where he got those sounds from, I don't technically know. I did not see him put his needle on the record and sample it, which I have seen. I was on many sessions with Said G would sample music and put it into his 4-track and do his thing. Mm-hmm. But I did not see him. He came into the studio with these sounds already there. Now, I recognize those sounds as the same drums as Eric B. for President. If you play Eric B. for President and then play the Bridge Is Over, they're the same drums. Mm-hmm. The original Bridge Is Over, the one that's on Criminal Minded, they're the same drums. Now, we interviewed, wait a minute, one other thing too, pertaining to that, in Marley's defense, that the whole style of our answering MC Shan, Marley Marl to answer their Queensbridge record was to bite their style, was to use their style against them. Yes, that was the tactic. That was what we were doing. Even with the rhyme style, where MC Shan is saying, "You love to hear the story again and again, how it all got started." And then my rhyme style in South Bronx, well, I basically mimic MC Shan. I mimic his. He says, "Why don't you wise up, show all the people in the place that you are why?" He says that's his cadence,
right?
In Queensbridge, his record. So not only were we biting his drum sounds, but we was also biting his lyric flow, and it was as a parody back to him, giving his style back to him in our words. That was the technique. Yes, it was, and it was musically as well as lyrically in that sense. However, Said G had tons of beats. The South Bronx was not to do with MC Shan, Marley Marl's production at all. So there is this running controversy. Said G outright denies. You should call him up and get his side of the story. But he outright denies that he took Marley's sounds. He said he sampled them, and I got to go back and look at what he actually said, because I don't know where he said he actually got his sounds from. Right. But he did say something alluding to that. I have to go back and look at the footage again. But he did say where he got his sounds from, and he also brought with him the floppy disks that he used. Marley brought into the studio his reel-to-reels that he claimed said he stole the music for the business of, really, for Criminal Minded. Marley is claiming that the Criminal Minded album, the drum sounds for Criminal Minded album came from his reel-to-reel. He had a reel-to-reel, he left it at power play, and it disappeared, and then reappeared, and only said, I don't even believe I'm saying this, but it's like, but this is Marley. This is what he has said. So, and that's why when you said it first, I laughed, because yes, Marley is partially correct, which brings fuel to this controversy, because the technique was to take his style and give it back to him, and the drums for The Bridge Is Over is Eric B. for President, which is produced by Marley Marl.
Right.